Good morning, everyone. I always forget to do show notes, so I'm going away tonight and I'll be back tomorrow, and so my show tomorrow might be a little bit late. I intend to do it, but it'll probably be in the afternoon, but it might just be in the morning because I'm a little nuts anyway, so we'll see. I might have a show tomorrow, but usually my travel mic is awful, so I might just wait to come back and use this. We'll see. But if I do wait to come back, my show will be in the afternoon after 1 o'clock. So apologies if you're waiting for that. You can check out Speaking Moistly. We just put a new episode up on Tuesday. If you haven't watched that, that's kind of fun. And the other thing is, I always forget to mention this, but if you don't know, you can get me on any podcast app. Just Google or search Canada Poly. I'm on NewTube.app. I'm on Facebook. I know. And CanadaPoly.com. I put my videos up on there just in case you're looking for me and you don't want to go through YouTube. The audio is on a podcast, but it gets uploaded automatically, so it's kind of easier than YouTube. Anyway, regardless, getting into the news, here is some international news to start. I'm bringing this up because I think that it's important to understand what global governance means, because this is what it means. It means when the global governance passes a resolution you disagree with, well, that kind of applies to you, right? It's kind of just like, yeah, well, the UN says this, and you're in the UN and you agree with this, so take that, right? Just dropped something. Anyway, it says, no joke, the UN just adopted a resolution referring to Jerusalem's Temple Mount solely by its Muslim name of Harim al-Sharif, one of 7 resolutions passed today that single out or condemn Israel, with 0 on the entire rest of the world. No resolutions. And it says the UN also falsely accuses Israel of the continuing systemic violation of the human rights of the Palestinian people. No mention of the thousands of rockets, stabbings, shootings, and other terror attacks by Hamas and Islamic Jihad. Only true words on the page are please recycle. Please recycle. I don't know. Recycling started in Kitchener-Waterloo, and it was a way for the soda companies to get plastic bottles instead of those expensive glass ones. That's, Anyway, regardless of that, moving on. Manitoba's secret COVID-19 camp. What's going on here? And I think it's funny because at the beginning of this video, you should go watch this video. It's interesting. Kian Bexty is talking about how Justin Trudeau doesn't want you to know about this site and it's secret and blah, 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 blah. And okay, maybe that is true. It's a little bit rural and you don't want to know about the site. And I don't like the idea of having COVID isolation centers or COVID sites like this. It's not a good look for Canada. It's not a good look for the rest of the world. It's not a good look for 2020. It's not a good look as we march into the future towards 2030, right? This isn't what I want to see dotting our landscape of the next decade. That's just terrifying. But here it is in Toronto. Toronto Public Health says, did you know Toronto's voluntary isolation center is available if you or someone you live with has COVID-19? What do you do with somebody you live with? I'm pretty sure my kid's got COVID-19. He's 16 and he won't get out of the house. No? Available for individuals who live with others and need a space to self-isolate. It's free, private, safe, and comfortable. How are we affording this? Did we ask about this? What's the capacity of this? What in the world? Back to this. A place to rest and recover without worrying about exposing others. I wonder if you could, go to the theater and come back for the free, comfortable, private, safe place. I'm gonna go see an afternoon matinee. It's just a matinee. There's barely any people there. It's 6 seats, sure, fine, no problem. And then you go to the COVID center for the night and then you go home? Or do you have to stay for 2 weeks? Can you just leave and come and go as well? I don't know. It's a little tricky. I don't think it's good, right? I'm making light of it, but I don't think it's good. It's not a good step, but it's obviously not hidden, right? So, but watch that video. It's interesting. Rebel News. I like memes. I think that they show the pulse of what people think. And here's Doug Ford, and he says, we will follow the science, while he's spinning the wheel of open and closed. And there's only one closed. Bum, 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 bum. But they seem to be using that quite a lot, right? Here's Randy Hiller, and I think that this is important. He's asking questions in the House of Commons that I think are quite on topic and on point. And in this question, Christine Elliott, her response, I think that's Christine Elliott. I could be wrong. But I believe her response is, I don't know what point you're trying to make here. See if you can hear his point. I feel like that's gaslighting somebody, right? If you're like, I don't know if they're making an obvious point and you're like, I'm not sure what you're trying to say. I was going to make like a surprise baby, the baby's the wrong color joke, but whatever. Okay, here we go.
19 going forward.
To the Premier, thinking people understand that the true measure of risk from any disease is not the number of cases, but rather the severity of the illness and the number of hospitalizations and deaths that result. If the number of cases meant anything, every province, state, and country would shut down from September to April every year for the flu. But that would be absurd, irrational, and inane, just like the government's proposals. But it gets worse. The Premier proposes testing 100,000 healthy people every day, which his own government acknowledges will produce approximately 1,000 false positives every day. However, which then justifies this endless circle of futility and misery. Speaker, coronaviruses are real, but the crisis is not. It is one by the Premier's own making.
Minister of Health to reply.
Thank you, Speaker. And through you, I would like to say to the member, I don't know exactly what point it is that you're trying to make, but I think what we need to look at are the facts. The facts are that we have testing. We are increasing our testing, tracing, and contact management by $1 billion. We're increasing the numbers. We're increasing the testing, contact management. And I think it's also
his point was that if cases meant anything, then we would shut down for the flu. But cases don't mean anything, and shutting down for the flu would be crazy. Why are we only looking at testing cases? Testing is expensive. Increasing testing costs more money. She's trying to pivot to what we're doing about this coronavirus thing, and in doing so, she's kind of tipping her hand, because what they're doing is spending a lot of money on testing. But his point was that the testing yields false positive cases, thereby spurring on more testing because they think that there's coronavirus somewhere. Thereby, it's a vicious cycle, and it's one of our own making through bad policy. And did you hear the laugh? That wasn't by accident. Okay, that wasn't by accident. Randy Hillier is a target because he's an independent, and they want to make him look foolish. That is the reason for the laugh. Doesn't matter what he asked. What he asked was on point, and exactly the correct questions to be asking. And the first question was good as well. But why are we focusing solely on cases when other metrics are more important? He makes that point in the earlier question too. When other metrics are more important, yet we are continuing to propagate this falsehood through cases. And I'll show you what I mean. Here's the Ontario government to prevent first pandemic budget layout, next steps for recovery. Now, we saw the first bit of that, and this is just, they're going to announce a budget and the first steps for recovery. But fundamentally, I think that all of these moves are not the right moves, right? They're focusing on the wrong metrics, and they're not even willing to acknowledge that, even when that's pointed out to them, even when it's pointed out that your tests yield false positives. Increasing testing increase the instances of false positives, thereby creating a feedback loop of generating more testing and more false positives and more draconian measures. Here's CP24. Expert says Canada's 3-layer face mask recommendation makes sense. You should see the comments. Blistering. People do not believe anything that these news people have to say. No, these people are making fun, like I'm going full corona. Rocco Gelati is being linked. Here's Bubble Boy, right? Like, your experts are a joke is what I said. Experts say, I want to see a mask degree, PhD in maskology. I don't think so, right? Piss off. No. Should have mandated this in March. People still believing it, right? But fundamentally, people are upset. And 3-layered masks? Come on. How about this? Mississauga.com reporting, Peel's top doctor calls for prohibition on all private household gatherings in Brampton, Caledon, and Mississauga. I'm highlighting this because this is the first time I've seen multiple holidays listed rather than just traditional Canadian holidays. Peel's top doctor is calling for a prohibition on all indoor and outdoor gatherings in households as the province is set to loosen some restrictions on bars, restaurants, and gyms across the region. They're using this as an excuse to crack down on personal gatherings, on like in-home gatherings. Dr. Lawrence Lowe, Peel's medical officer of health, told Mississauga Council Wednesday, November 4th, that he strongly recommended a halt to get-togethers in and outside private homes beyond those people already living there until further notice. If implemented, the recommendation would put gatherings related to upcoming holidays like Diwali, Hanukkah, Christmas, and Kwanzaa in question. This is unbelievable overreach. There is zero evidence that I'll show you the cases in just a minute. but I wanted to show you this Winnipeg police thing first. Winnipeg police. So this is happening in Canada. We've begun triaging calls from the public regarding gathering sizes in private residences and will dispatch resources to intervene as required. Fines for individual breaches have been increased to $1,296, full release. So police are getting involved in making sure and enforcing you not getting together with people other than outside your household in Winnipeg. The top doctor in Halton, Mississauga, Brampton, Caledon, and Mississauga, is calling for a full lockdown on visits, even though you can go to restaurants. Does this seem to make any kind of sense to you? Okay, here's the daily tests. So they're doing they've got 948 new cases on November 2nd. I guess that's the highest one here. November 4th, they've got 987, okay? And in that time, they got 16 dead and 14 dead on the 3rd, 9 dead on the 1st, 7 dead on the 2nd. But, and if that were the case, if all of these were COVID deaths, then that might be concerning. But even so, I still don't think this is enough to be discussing the draconian lockdown measures and to be ignoring the low deaths in favor of these crazy measures. I don't know what they're going for. I don't know if they're going for complete eradication of this virus. How can you do that with a test that's so flawed? How could you possibly do that? And that's the problem with how they're responding to Randy Hillier, because he's trying to hold them accountable and they're laughing at him, right? And then going off on their talking points. But Miss Elliott's not very good at that. She wasn't very good at that. She stumbled there. It wasn't very good. It was clumsy. It was a clumsy transition. It wasn't a good pivot. And they're ignoring this data. But even if this data was true, and I don't think it's true, and here's why I don't think it's true, okay? Here's why. Here's the first one. Toronto Public Health tweets, and this is way back on June 24th, individuals who have died with COVID-19 but not as a result of COVID-19 are included in the case counts for COVID-19 deaths in Toronto, okay? How many of those were of the 9? Here's the other reason I don't believe that we've got, or 16 dead. Global News is reporting. Quebec, the province, says 8 of the fatalities attributed to COVID-19 occurred in the last 24 hours. So they're reporting 33 more deaths. Quebec reports 1,029 new coronavirus cases. Oh no, the cases! And 33 more deaths. But only 8 of them happened in the last 24 hours, right? Here it is. The province says 8 of the fatalities attributed to COVID-19 occurred in the last 24 hours. 16 deaths occurred between October 28th and November 2nd, while 7 took place before October 28th. 2 occurred at an unknown date. An unknown date. You know, I don't know when these people died, but did they die of COVID? You're darn right they did. What did you test? Their ashes? Okay. They're definitely dead, and they definitely died of COVID-19. We cycled it 150 times. Whatever, man, whatever. It came up positive. Just say COVID. Here's Anthony Furey, and he's talking. I think that's Anthony Furey. Yeah. And he's talking about, there was a report that was released by Dr. Tam, and he's saying, I was looking forward to this report. I wanted to see this report. I'm not gonna play this, but you should go play this. I don't want to steal, okay, it's Toronto Sun. Okay, it's Toronto Sun, so I'll just play that. No, I won't. I'll leave this. Fundamentally, what he's saying is that he was looking forward to reading Dr. Tam's recommendations moving forward, but basically it's a political document that highlights all of the intersectionality and inclusivity lens. We have to look at COVID through these lenses in order to make sense of COVID and how to move forward, and we've got an opportunity to reimagine how we live and work. I don't want to reimagine how we live and work. I want to go back to what we used to live like, and there is zero reason, not a believable reason anyway, that we can't go back to those things. They're inflating the death numbers, they're lying to us, and they're saying that, people who died with COVID are part of the COVID death count, and we're still at 16 people? How many people of other issues, heart disease, stroke, all of the other mortality things, how many people died yesterday of that? Can we have a graph of that just imprinted over top? I think people are going to get sick of this. I think people are sick of this. I think people can see that this is bunk. This is absolute bunk. When did they die? Oh, well, at indeterminate time, at some point recently, kind of, sort of. Anyway, he's saying that Tam's angling for a political office, basically. And he says maybe that document would be better suited for a political career, but it's not suited for the top public health official of the country. Here's Calgary. CTV News is reporting yesterday or 2 days ago. Today's the 5th. This is reported on the 3rd. Lockdowns possible as COVID-19 numbers soar, warns Calgary Mayor. Oh, Mr. Nenshi. They're wanting to lock down Calgary. right? 1,000 cases. How many dead in Calgary? I'm not even going to bother to look because it doesn't matter. They don't care. They don't care. They don't care. This is good enough and people are buying it. So they're going to continue it. This is funny. This is funny. This is a fun juxtaposition that I like. National Post is reporting, they profited off this pandemic, says Jagmeet Singh, NDP, to push for wealth tax to go on Commons agenda. So it's okay to look at small businesses, but we cannot look at we. We are not allowed to look at we. And don't worry, somebody's already looked at we, says the Toronto Star, right? A forensic audit. Here's Amanda Alvaro, liberal fixer and former We Charity acolyte, Amanda Alvaro. She says, the Star, she's sharing this Star article, forensic analysis exonerates We Charity and the Canadian government. Oh, great. Nobody knew this was happening. But what's his name? Jesse Brown says, a misleading press release has people spreading word that an independent forensic audit of We Charity has been conducted and released, clearing the organization of any financial wrongdoing. This is false. It simply has not happened. I don't know. Who knows? Who knows? But here's Parliamentary Budget Officer rebukes Trudeau government over spending, right? So there's another $250 fine for the Prime Minister and his group. But every single Liberal MP and Justin Trudeau voted to keep conducting audits on small businesses as they struggle to keep their doors open during a second wave. Thankfully, other parties supported to stop him. I can't understand why they wouldn't support it. So the Liberals voted no to stopping the audits, and the opposition all voted together to stop the audits on small businesses, right? So the NDP wants to go after big business, not small business. The Liberals want to audit small business, but definitely don't want we audited, but they're putting out false reports that we's been audited. And Justin Trudeau is getting rebuked for his spending secrecy. That's what it is. Rebukes Trudeau over spending secrecy. So that's not great, right? That's not great when MPs are having to band together to defeat the government's plan of auditing small businesses when the government themselves are underfunding their own auditors and making sure that, that pesky we problem has plausible deniability. Is that the word? I'm not sure. We got this audit done and they said everything's fine. Plausible, right? Anyway, this is Canada Revenue Agency confirms auditors targeted small businesses that applied for pandemic wage subsidies. MPs voted 176 to 152, ordered audits stop until June. So, but they're still doing it. Do you think they'll let the we documents out by June? Spoiler alert. Not unless we have an election, and then the election is decided, and then after the election, whoever wins the election opens an investigation or allows an investigation to be open, and then we get the we documents. Do you think it'll happen by June? No, not a chance. Anthony Furey says, so the government says focus on COVID, don't ask too many questions about COVID, make sure your spending's above board, but don't ask too many questions about our spending. Don't you love nouveau communism? It's so wonderful, isn't it? Back to this. Anthony Furey, the U.S. successfully reduced emissions after exiting the Paris deal. There is no purpose to being in it, aside from shelling out the financial racket that is the Green Climate Fund. Canada, which is seeing decreasing per capita emissions, should also exit it. Yeah, I'm glad that he's calling for that. Joe Biden says today the Trump administration officially left the Paris Climate Agreement, and in exactly 77 days, a Biden administration will rejoin it. I'm going to talk about that at the end of the show. I think that there's something going to be happening. We'll see. This is UK, so we're going a little international now. Today I will vote against the second national lockdown. This is in Boris's cabinet. The government's case is based on dubious modeling. It seems to me there are lies, damn lies, and COVID statistics. You're darned right, sir. You're darned right, right? These deaths may or may not be COVID, but they'll be counted as COVID, and they may or may not have happened in the last 24 hours. But don't ask too many questions about that, citizen, or we'll call you a Nazi, right? Welcome to Canada. Welcome to Canada in 2020, right? Just move into your small box-like structure and don't ask too many questions and pay your taxes. Hashtag, we're in this together. Here is Jagmeet Singh yesterday. He says, this is on the actual election day. I talked about this on the day after the election, so yesterday. But it says, discussing the U.S. election, NDP leader Jagmeet Singh tells reporters in Ottawa that there's a moral imperative to speak out on Donald Trump's actions during his presidency. I think it would be better for the world if Trump loses, and I hope he loses today. Just making him and his party more and more irrelevant, really. Like, it's not... focus on Canada. And like, you don't need to deal with Trump, especially when you're so wrong. You're so wrong. Yesterday, I reported about the Michigan screw up, and apparently it was not the vote dumping that the vote fraud that I thought it was, and that a lot of people thought it was online at the time. Twitter's censoring that, but what actually happened was there was somebody added accidentally, I'm sure, an extra one, right? So it was 115,000 rather than the 1,000, right? To keep it in that line. So that's what caused that. Could happen, I don't know. I'm going to talk about voter fraud because there is a whole bunch of voter fraud, and it's very interesting because this one, the Michigan, I don't know if it's still available. This one was Wyoming, I think. The one with, so they just deleted it. But the Wyoming graph with the very, very obvious uptick, I'm sure I could find it, but I'm just going to hope you remember what I'm talking about, was one that I thought was an obvious one. But there are videos, here's one, of poll workers being kept out of the polling stations, and people are talking about, like, no, you're not coming in here, and there's no way we're letting you in here. This is in Philadelphia, excuse me. And he's like, no, I've got the credentials. You have to let me in. I'm a poll watcher. Like, you have to let me in, and they're not letting him in. And so what's happening? What I've heard anyway through rumors, and this is unsubstantiated. This is rumor, not fact. Okay, so this is, I don't know. This is just speculation. This is absolute freewheel speculation. But I think that Trump set a trap. Trump knew they were going to cheat the election. I think he knew they cheated in some of the midterm elections for the House, right? They won the House with the squad or whatever, and people were upset about that at the time. And I think that was a check to make sure that their countermeasures were going to work or not be detected or whatever. And so what are the countermeasures? Okay, so what's the plan? I said yesterday, you don't need to steal everywhere to steal an election. You just need to steal key states, and sometimes only key places in a state. You don't need to steal the whole election. You just need to steal some specific places that'll flip the whole election, right? And so in that case, a majority of people experience an election with no fraud, but a very few amount of people experienced an election with fraud. There was the Sharpie gate, so you can look into that. I'm not going to go into that too much, but that was one thing. But the other thing is finding the missing votes at 4 o'clock in the morning and then adding those to the total. What that results in is either really high voter turnout, but if you have a historically high voter turnout, then you have a really high voter turnout. So here's a Twitter person making this point. Is this new math? Something doesn't smell right. Wisconsin has 3,129,000 voters registered and 3,288,780 votes counted. Interesting. Minnesota had 3 million voters registered, 3,200,217 votes counted. Virginia, 4,159,000 registered voters, votes counted, 4,304,064 votes counted, right? Colorado, same thing, 2,645,000 registered voters, votes counted, 2,923,312. So, isn't that interesting? That's interesting. Here's another interesting thing. If you speculate on that, right, well, then you're a conspiracy theorist. But if you're Donald Trump and you knew this was going to happen and you had countermeasures in place that weren't maybe detected, maybe they isotoped the ballots. Maybe there are ballots that are legit, and maybe there are identical ballots that don't have this watermark. So this is just somebody saying, is there a watermark on this ballot? And she's got a one of those jewel things. Very technical on my show today, those jewel things. And she zooms in and she says, maybe it's here at 35 seconds. So that's the paper under the jewel scope. But at 35 seconds, it kind of, I can kind of see, maybe I'm wrong, I might be wrong, but I can kind of see what looks to be like a serial number or something, some line of numbers with different colors. Maybe I'm seeing things, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Trump's not that far ahead and he's bumbling around. See there, yeah, I think it's like a serial number. Okay, maybe 46 seconds is even better. So I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm crazy. I'm probably crazy. But maybe Trump knew they were going to try this. Maybe he had to let them try this. Maybe he had to let them try this in order to show exactly how far they would go to take him out of his office, right? Maybe it's not just happening in the United States. Maybe we've got a problem that's not just happening in the United States, because I was making the point yesterday that Like, that's the gold standard of democracy, right? They export their democracy around the world. If it's corrupt to the level that it looks like 6 states are going to flip the whole election to Biden, who couldn't get 10 people to come to his rallies, if the gold standard of elections in the world is that easily corrupted, then what does that say for like the UK and Australia and Canada? What does that say about all of our up and down tickets, right? Like from municipal all the way up to the prime minister, right? All of it, premier, everything. How do we know? How can we confirm, right? This is the whole world's watching this, right? The U.S. election. This is bigger than the Super Bowl, right? This has impacts on everything. Joe Biden got called for Arizona, and the Dow dropped 200 points yesterday. Like, a football game doesn't change that, right? Like the Rams beat the Eagles, and people go, man, some guys lost a lot of money there, right? Whatever the matchup is, right? Like the Toronto Maple Leafs win the Stanley Cup, right? It doesn't rock the world. The presidential election, the whole world's watching. So what happens next, right? I think what happens next is it's Trump's turn. Maybe not. I still think he wins. I don't think he's gone through 4 years of this to roll over now. Let's put it that way. And I don't think that the people who put their faith in Mr. Trump and who voted for Mr. Trump are going to let their votes be watered down by extra ballots that may or may not be legitimate, may or may not have been cast before the November 3rd midnight cutoff, right? I don't know. I'm just speculating. I certainly don't know. I'm watching this ride just like you guys are. And, well, if there was any time to unleash absolutely everything you've got, I think we're there. Maybe I'm wrong, but it seems like now's the time, guys. Thanks for watching, everybody. Check out CanadaPoly.com, check out CanadaReport.co, check out SpeakingMoistly.co, and, wow, let's keep watching, eh? Very interesting. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.